Welcome back to Musings from the Mountains. My name is Zach Anderson alongside Keenan Cummings, and today we have a special guest. His name is Jesse Crittenden, a beat reporter from OU Insider. Jesse, it's great to have you. WVU and Oklahoma matching up once again, of course, maybe for the last time in a long time this season. And Oklahoma, two back-to-back losses. West Virginia's surging. Just going into your general thoughts on the matchup, what do you think is going to happen on Saturday?
I honestly think this is a really tough matchup for Oklahoma, not only just because West Virginia is a good team, but because Oklahoma is obviously in a little bit of a slump right now. To have back-to-back losses in the way they've lost them. I mean, they've lost them by a combined 8 points, but it's been the same thing both weeks. Turnovers. I mean, it's 6 turnovers, 19 penalties the last two games, and they've been struggling to score when it matters most. And this West Virginia team, like you said, has played really well the last 2 weeks. Really good win over BYU last Saturday. So I mean, yes, Oklahoma's at home, but to be honest with you, I think if you're, I know what the line is. I know OU is a heavy favorite for some reason, but this is a good West Virginia team, and I think even being at home, I think OU fans are a little bit nervous about this one.
You mentioned the penalties, and when I was looking at kind of Oklahoma stats, that really stood out to me like a sore thumb. Has that been an issue all season? And West Virginia dealt with that last season. It really killed drives and stalled things out. Has that, and what's kind of been the root of that? Is it procedural things, like emotional things? What's caused the problems there?
It's a mix of everything, to be honest with you. I mean, to answer your original question, it has been an issue all season, but it's particularly been an issue the last 2 weeks. I mean, there are 11 penalties against Kansas 2 weeks ago, was their most of the season. Their 19 penalties combined the last 2 weeks is more than any other two-game stretch this season. It was a little bit of a problem last year too, but I think this year it's a mix of everything. I mean, they've had 6 false starts combined the last 2 weeks, including I think 3 by the wide receivers, which is you just can't have that. I mean, there's that, and then twice or once once against Oklahoma State, once against Kansas, they had a defensive penalty and then an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on the coaching staff on top of it, amounting for 30 yards in one play. That's happened. That's happened once each the last 2 weeks. So I think it's been kind of a mix of things. I think if you were to ask Oklahoma fans, they would tell you that it's a conspiracy because they're leaving the Big 12. And look, I don't know if you saw the Drake Stoops play at the end of the Oklahoma State game on Saturday. There was an egregious no call, absolutely. But all that being said, I think you're seeing an Oklahoma team that's really struggled to be disciplined. Brent Venables touched on that in his press conference on Tuesday. It's been all over the place, and that can't happen against good teams. Kansas is a good team. Oklahoma State's a good team, and this West Virginia is a good team. If Oklahoma continues to commit penalties like this, they will lose. So I think that's something they know they've got to get cleaned up.
So talking about Oklahoma State, you guys faced off with them last week. They kind of rolled through West Virginia a few weeks ago at home for West Virginia. A high scoring game, ended up winning by a few touchdowns. Oklahoma State did. So what do you think the similarities are between those games? Because you guys faced off against them last week, and you said it came down to a close call. So take me through what went wrong in that game last week.
Yeah, I think it was again kind of a mix of things. I mean, Oklahoma held a 21-17 or 17 lead for a lot of the third quarter. Definitely opportunities, I think, to pull away. And for example, Oklahoma had the lead a lot of the second half, but then Oklahoma State went on a drive to take a 24-21 lead in the fourth quarter. And on the first play of the next possession, I mean, think about you're Oklahoma. The Oklahoma State crowd's into it. You're trailing now. You need to get some momentum. The first play of the game, botch snap, fumble. Oklahoma State recovers, gets to kick a field goal to take a 27-21 lead. So I think for the most part, Oklahoma did a pretty good job of limiting Ollie Gordon, who obviously is playing like a Heisman candidate. I mean, he averaged just 4.2 yards per carry, his lowest in conference play. I think Oklahoma kind of sold out to stop the run a little bit. And as a result, Alan Bowman actually made some plays for them. But I thought largely Oklahoma's defense played really well, especially in the second half. I mean, Oklahoma State only had 10 points. They had 10 points off turnovers. So really they only scored 17 points directly on the Oklahoma defense. I think it was, again, just the offense's inability to make plays when it mattered most. That's kind of been the problem the last 2 weeks. I mean, even at Kansas, Oklahoma had a 1-point lead with 3 minutes to go. And they need just one first down to seal the win. They can't do it. They punt. Kansas goes down and scores the game-winning drive. So I think in a lot of ways, I think you saw what West Virginia tried to do. It was a little bit similar to what Oklahoma wanted to do. And I think West Virginia had a little bit easier scoring or time scoring than Oklahoma did. I think if you had maybe taken West Virginia's offense and put it into Oklahoma's on Saturday, maybe they get the win. I don't know, but it was frustrating, I think, for OU fans that there were opportunities to win and they couldn't get it done.
What do you think, this Oklahoma team, it's kind of a tale of, I don't want to say a tale of two seasons because there's a lot of second half of the year left, but you beat Texas, you're riding high, you're thinking college football playoff, and then smack dad, you lose two in a row. Where do you think, just being around the team, talking to people this week, where are their heads at? Because truthfully, they're still in the conference race. And West Virginia is too. Who would have thought at the starting of the year this was going to be a race for a team to stay alive for the Big 12 championship? But here we are. Where do you think this Oklahoma team is at?
Yeah, it's kind of like I mentioned in the behind enemy lines that I did with you guys earlier this week. I think this team is pretty stunned. I do. And I think it's not only just that they've lost back-to-back games, but I think, after that win over Texas and the way they won it for them to drive down and for Dylan Gabriel to throw the game-winning touchdown, I think they weren't even just on top of the Big 12. I think they were on top of the college football world there for a little bit. And considering they had the bye after that Texas game, they had a lot of time, I think, to kind of bask in how great that win was. But really, since that Texas game, and again, I mentioned they had the bye week after that, this team has not been the same. They really struggled against UCF coming out of the bye week. They had to stop a 2-point conversion at the end to pull away to escape that. And obviously UCF is a team that struggled this season. I think it's a combination of things. I do think injuries have hurt this team quite a bit. Angelo Anthony was the team's leading receiver the first 6 weeks. He suffered a season-ending injury against Texas. Obviously, Danny Stutzman is the team's leading tackler. He missed the Oklahoma State game. There's other guys that have kind of been nicked up that haven't been able to play fully. But I do think there is a little bit of a concern that, this team beat Texas and they almost started to look ahead to the Big 12 title game and everything after that, instead of focusing on, hey, that's a great win, but we've got to we've still got to win these games. We've still got to prove ourselves week in, week out. And I think that's why you're seeing some of the disciplinary issues. I think that's why you're seeing, the turnover issues again. They had 5 turnovers the first 7 weeks. They've had 6 the last 2 weeks. So I do think that's the unfortunate part is OU was in the driver's seat, and now they need a lot of things to go their way to get to the Big 12 title game. So I think this weekend is going to tell us a lot about where this team is at, and if they can bounce back and, and all that kind of stuff.
What has been the issue offensively? I know when you were mentioning penalties earlier, fans thinking they're a conspiracy. West Virginia fans think back to that OU game in 2018 where they blocking out of bounds call that I don't think has ever been called.
Man, I was at that game, Keenan. I was at that game as a fan. It was just crazy.
But fans are always going to say that kind of stuff. But when you look at offensively, another thing fans are always going to cite play calling. But you look at OU's numbers, they're good. What has been the issues offensively the past couple of weeks? Because they aren't scoring as many points as they were earlier in the year.
Yeah, that's kind of the $1 million question, and it's a good one. And you're right, because you look at the last 2 weeks. OU had 492 yards of offense against Oklahoma State. They had 440 against Kansas. So it's not like they're not moving the ball. It's not like the offense has been anemic. I think the problem has really come down to fourth quarter scoring in particular. And it's weird because this team has actually run the ball really well the last 2 weeks. After that was really the struggle the first 7 weeks of the season. They averaged 5.5 yards per carry against Oklahoma State. I think if you had told fans going into the game that would be the case, I think everybody would have assumed Oklahoma would win. I think it's been a combination of things. I think the personnel decisions have been a little weird at times. For example, a true freshman running back that hadn't played since week 3 saw 5 snaps in the second half against Oklahoma State, including OU threw it to him on a third down. He got hit behind the line of scrimmage. The wide receiver rotation has been weird. A guy that I think a lot of fans have been wanting to see more snaps, and Jaden Gibson played just one against Oklahoma State. I think that's been an issue. And then, yeah, I think you look at the Oklahoma State game where OU, I mean, even trailing 27-24, had a little over a minute to put together a game-winning drive, but on the 4th and 5, where they need to convert to keep the game alive, they throw a 3-yard pass that, the route didn't even go beyond the line of scrimmage. So, I mean, the pass was complete, but he got tackled because it was 2 yards in front of the sticks. So I think it's been a combination of some play calling issues. There's been a lot of stuff behind the line of scrimmage. There's been some jet sweeps that I think fans have not been super excited about. I think the play calling's been a little bit too cute at times. I think I mean, it is penalties. I think there's been penalties that have really been costly, that have hurt the momentum, and then turnovers. One of the turnovers on Saturday came. OU completed a 50-yard bomb in the first quarter. They're now deep in Oklahoma State territory, but they're trying to get up to the line and hurry up and get Oklahoma State on its heels. And the snap goes directly to the running back, who bobbles it and then appeared to try to hand it off to Dylan Gabriel, and it got fumbled, and Oklahoma State recovered it. That's just the kind of stuff you can't do that. You can't make those kind of mistakes against good teams. So this offense has moved the ball, but whether it's a weird play call, whether it's a weird personnel decision, whether it's a bad penalty, whether it's a really inopportune turnover, it's kind of just been a mix of things, and it's kept OU's offense from turning those yards into a lot of points.
We always say here, you can't score yards.
Exactly.
So that was a big thing under Dana. Dana would roll up 800 yards and 23 points. So
yeah.
I do think that's something that's should be fair to point out, is that, you can get all the yards you want all day long, but if you're not turning them into consistent points, it really doesn't matter. And I think that's been ultimately the frustrating thing, is there has been times where the offenses look good, but when you score 24 points against an Oklahoma State defense that isn't very good, even though you're on the road, OU should have scored more than 24 points. That's the reality.
So, Jesse, let's switch gears just a little bit to the defense, because I want to ask you how the Oklahoma defense will match up against WVU's rushing attack, because we know that's their primary, that's their go-to. They're top 10 in the nation in rushing yards. So how do you think that matchup will go on Saturday?
Yeah, I think if you're Oklahoma, and West Virginia's rushing attack is really, really good. Obviously, I know they're top 10 in running the ball. I think if you're Oklahoma, one silver lining is that they've played a lot of teams back to back who are really good at running the ball. I mean, UCF is top 10. Kansas was top 10 when OU played them, and obviously Oklahoma State has Ollie Gordon. And there's been mixed results. I mean, I think they did really well against UCF, but against Kansas, Kansas averaged 5.5 yards per carry. The rush defense wasn't good then. And then against Oklahoma State, again, I think they did a good job limiting Ollie Gordon, but he's still got some chunk plays. I think the big thing this weekend is if Danny Stutzman returns again. I mean, he leads the team in tackles. I think he's top 5 in the conference in tackles, even after missing that game last weekend. I think that's going to be huge. But I think if you're Oklahoma, mobile quarterbacks have hurt this team in the past, dating back to last season. Some people would say that mobile quarterbacks are Brent Venables' kryptonite, even dating back to his Clemson days and his previous Oklahoma days. So I think what you're going to see this Oklahoma defense do is kind of like they did last weekend against Oklahoma State. I think you're going to see them stack the box. I think you're going to see them bring safety help to stop the run. And I think they're going to put the ball in Garrett Green's hands and have him beat them through the air. I think that's the thing. Not that Garrett Green can't, but I think if you're Oklahoma, it's going to be about stopping the run. Don't let Garrett Green get outside the pocket. Let's, we'll give him some one-on-one coverage, see if he can make some plays down the field. So, I mean, basically it comes down to two things. If Oklahoma can limit West Virginia's rushing attack, and Garrett Green isn't super successful down the field, then that bodes well for Oklahoma. But if they either can't limit the rushing attack, or Garrett Green does a good job of making plays down the field, that bodes well for West Virginia. So I think all of this starts at not only the line of scrimmage, who wins the battle up front, but can Oklahoma make Garrett Green uncomfortable, make him throw it down the field and get some turnovers. I think that's the game plan you're going to see.
I did want to ask you to kick back a second. You look at Dylan Gabriel's numbers, they're really good. I mean, has he played as well as his numbers have showed? And how much of a growth has he made? I mean, I know we discussed it a little bit earlier this week, but I feel like it deserves mentioning just because you look at the guy's numbers and it's Heisman worthy.
It is, and I think if after the Texas game, he was a betting favorite to make it to New York. I mean, that's how well he was playing, and obviously the way he played against Texas and that game-winning drive was huge. And I do think he's still been good since that Texas game, but it hasn't been great. Like I mentioned earlier, Angelo Anthony's absence, I think, has hurt this offense. We saw them go down the field a little bit more against Oklahoma State or try to throw it downfield, but there's definitely been less of that the last 3 weeks. And I mean, against Kansas, he completed 14 and 19 passes, only had 171 yards. All of that are season lows for him across the board. Against Oklahoma State, he played a little bit better, but I do think some of the late game issues are a little bit on him too. So that's, all of that is to say Dylan Gabriel has been really good. I think he's easily been one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's top 15 in basically every stat you can think of. Completion percentage has been the one thing that has really remained with him all season. That's the thing that's been most consistent. He's been incredibly efficient. But there's been again 2 opportunities since that Texas game where they needed Dylan Gabriel in this offense to make plays late like they did against Texas, and they couldn't get it done. So I think all that being said, it's hard to criticize Dylan Gabriel too much. He's played really well this season, but the last couple weeks it has been a little uneven. The stats have looked good at times, but the play hasn't always looked good. So I do think with considering West Virginia does everything pretty well defensively, like they're pretty good at defending everything. I think you're going to see Dylan Gabriel have to air it out this weekend, and I think OU's chances of winning depend largely on if he can make plays down the field.
So, what's some keys to the game? You've mentioned this a little bit throughout. What if you had to pick a few keys to the game for Oklahoma to get the win? They are at home. They have the environment in their favor. What do you think are some keys that they could focus on to get the win?
Yeah, I think the first thing, the main thing is turnovers again. But it's not only just that this offense needs to stop turning the ball over so much. I mean, again, you can't have 6 turnovers in a 2-game span, especially when you were so good at that to start the year. But it's clear that through that 7-0 start, it wasn't only just about the offense not turning the ball over; it was about the defense forcing turnovers. I mean, this Oklahoma defense has forced 19 turnovers on the season. That's when they're at their best, is when the defense is forcing turnovers, getting the offense into good positions, good field position, and playing complementary football that way. But I think this offense or I think this team as a whole and what they want to do really bogs down when the defense either A, can't force turnovers, or B, the offense is turning the ball over too much. So I think that's the first thing. And then 2, I do think this game is going to come down to who can run the ball the best. I really do. I mean, I think Oklahoma, the rushing attack has been a little inconsistent this season, but again, last week was the most efficient they've been running the ball this year. We know that West Virginia runs the ball and they do it really well. So I think this game is going to be a lot about can Oklahoma obviously not only stop West Virginia's rushing attack, but can OU establish the run? Can they be efficient in the running game? Can they control the pace of play? I think that's going to be the biggest thing, or that's going to be a huge thing. And then I think the third thing is, again, penalties, because West Virginia is a good team. And we've seen that, OU made some mistakes earlier in the year against lesser teams and they were able to get away with it. They weren't able to get away with it against Oklahoma State and Kansas, and they're not going to be able to get away with it this weekend, even at home. So, and again, the penalties have been all over. I mean, they've been, a wide variety of penalties. Some of them have included pre-snap penalties that have absolutely killed drives. So can't have that. So I think it's got to win the turnover battle, got to be able to establish the run, and it can't have, you can't have 11 penalties, can't have 8 penalties if you're going to beat this West Virginia team.
For fans making the trip out there, now I know some have already, but this could be the last time West Virginia comes out for a while. What are some recommendations you would have for people to do, people to see, places to eat, that kind of deal, either in Norman or in the surrounding areas?
Yeah, so it depends on how long they're going to be down here, what they like to do. But obviously, I think even if you're a West Virginia fan, I think Heisman Park right outside the stadium is really cool for Oklahoma fans. I mean, they have a big statue of everybody that's won the Heisman. I think that's really cool, even for opposing fan bases to go through there and see these big statues of Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and Jason White and those guys. I think as far as places to eat, I think Campus Corner has a lot of has a lot of good places. Now, obviously that's a little bit more college, it's a little bit more a college town vibe. But Campus Corner is right by the stadium. There's really good stuff there. My personal favorite is a restaurant called Blue. That's about 5 to 10 minutes from the stadium. Um, it's great. It's kind of got a bistro vibe a little bit, but really good prices on basically everything. I recommend a hand tossed pizza. They're fantastic. And if it's after the game and you're relaxing, they do $2 well drinks all day. I certainly appreciate that. But
As you should.
all day, every day, you can't beat that. You cannot beat that. So that's, I think it depends on exactly what you're looking to do, but those would be my recommendations for sure.
Last thing, I won't put you on the spot, but prediction wise, do you have one?
I think I said last night, I think I said 28-21 Oklahoma, I think is what I said. But that again comes with the caveat that, look, the last 2 weeks for Oklahoma simply haven't been good. I think there's a lot of reasons to not be super encouraged if you're an OU fan, or not super optimistic. Not only just about the way the last 2 weeks have gone, but again, this is a good West Virginia team. And like I said, in behind enemy lines, there's a lot of paths to victory for West Virginia. Garrett Green makes plays. If West Virginia establishes the run, if they can force some OU turnovers, those are easy paths to victory. It would not shock me in the slightest if West Virginia comes out with a win. So I think this is a game that OU probably should win, just being at home. You've had back-to-back losses. You need a bounce back game. You're doing it, you do it a night game, at the stadium. You're not only trying to still remain viable for the Big 12 race, but I think there's also a lot of questions about the program as a whole. I think to kind of slow the noise of all that, I think this is a game that Oklahoma probably should win, but West Virginia is a good team. West Virginia is a talented team. I've really been impressed by them this season, especially considering how, I know how tough last year was. It's been really impressive. But I'll say Oklahoma wins in a close one, but don't bank on that. West Virginia could easily win this game.
It does feel like the final edition, at least what we expect to be the final edition of this game, could be a good one, similar to last year and the year before.
Yeah.
These two teams have played walk-off field goal games in back-to-back seasons. So interesting dynamic at play.
Yeah, it is. For some reason, even before West Virginia joined the conference, it's this matchup has always had weird games. It's weird games. It's always competitive, and I do think, obviously I've been doing a lot of this with Oklahoma going to the SEC next year. You're thinking about, oh, this might be the last time we see this matchup or this matchup. There is a part of me that's a little bummed that this might be the last OU West Virginia game for a while, because you're right. I mean, 16-13 2 years ago, 23-20 last year. Both were incredible games. Both were kind of gross games also at the same time.
Yeah.
Gross games.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but
you can leave out the kinda.
Especially last year, man. It was cold and rainy and both teams I think were making some head scratching plays at times, but West Virginia, you got to give them credit to come out with the win. But anyways, I absolutely think this weekend is going to be a really good game. I think it's going to continue that, and it's going to make me a little bit sad if this is the last time we see this game for a while.
Well, Jesse, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your time and your insight. Let everybody know where they can check out your work.
Yeah, absolutely. You can head over to ouinsider.com. Obviously I cover OU football, basketball, and softball, but I'm always trying to, include stuff on the other teams that Oklahoma plays, and, feature stories, all that stuff. But you can head over to ouinsider.com, or head over to our OU Insider YouTube channel. There's always content there and always stuff I'm doing. So I really appreciate you guys for having me on. It's been fun, and It should be a really fun game this weekend.
Well, thank you, Jesse. You can go ahead and sign off whenever you're ready. We appreciate your time as well. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Well. Zach, we got a big one here.
Yeah, huge one for West
Just like
Virginia.
we all predicted before the season started. West Virginia and Oklahoma playing.
I sensed a little sarcasm there. Was there some sarcasm in that one?
Hey, I've only missed one game prediction all year, I think. So,
and I've been terrible
no,
in my game predictions. So
I missed two because I did take Oklahoma or West Virginia to beat Oklahoma State. So I've missed two. So I right now am 7-2, which is a better record than the West Virginia actual football team. So I think that when I look at this game, all seriousness, West Virginia is played very well right now. They are playing very well. They're playing very good football, and kind of doing it in a complete fashion. You look at the numbers last week. It was the most yards under Neil Brown, the most yards since Dana's 2018 team that really fumbled away a chance to play in the Big 12 championship game. The most rushing yards under Neil. You had a shutout until really late in the game with your backups in on defense. And I get it. BYU's beat up, but they're not nearly as bad of a
widest margin of victory as well. And against FBS opponents. Yeah.
They're not nearly as bad of a football team as some of the people on the blue lot want you to believe. They have beaten some teams this year that they're pretty solid. So I think that this is going to be an interesting game. I think Oklahoma is kind of that point where West Virginia was a few weeks ago. We got our answer with West Virginia. They rebounded. They're playing their best football of the season. Is this Oklahoma team going to pack it up and say, well, we're not going to the college football playoff, or, we're going to need help to play in the Big 12 championship game? West Virginia still feels like they have a lot to play for. Mm-hmm. So I think that dynamic at play. West Virginia's played pretty well out in Norman before. I'm not worried about handling the road. They've played well under Neil. They should have won the last time they went out there. The one time Zach Frazier's probably made a bad snap in his entire career, which if you had that as a trivia question, I don't think I would have believed it, and I saw it.
Yeah.
So I think that I agree with Jesse. It's going to come down, can West Virginia run the football? And if Oklahoma is successful, can they throw the ball in those situations? Defensively, you're going to give up yards. But again, you can't score yards. West Virginia's got to hold in the red zone. That's kind of been the philosophy on defense in this league for a long time for a lot of teams. Mm-hmm. You give up yards, but you got to be able to hold in the red zone. You got to be able to force teams to kick field goals. So that's going to be kind of the key. Do I think West Virginia can win this game? Absolutely. Am I going to pick them? No. I'm not, until West Virginia wins in Norman, I will not pick them in this game.
Yep.
I think it'll be close, though. I agree with Jesse. I think it'll probably be like a 31-24 game, 31-21 type game. Mm-hmm. But if West Virginia gets some breaks, if Oklahoma continues to shoot themselves in the foot, I absolutely could see old Neil Brown and the boys singing Country Roads by the end of this.
The BYU win was so convincing, and now there's definitely a lot of good things we've seen from West Virginia on defense and offense. But, I like you said, Keenan, the track record in Norman's not good. When you just look at the record, not the results, not the game in their entirety, in a vacuum, you look at the record, it's not great in Norman. Since joining the Big 12 before that. So I have to go with Oklahoma as well. I'm saying like 34-28. I think it's going to be kind of high scoring, but I think Oklahoma will bounce back. I mean, we saw what they did against Texas. That's a strong offensive team. Dylan Gabriel is a Heisman candidate. And I'm not dissing on West Virginia. They've done lots of great things. I just think winning in Norman is a hard thing to do, even for this West Virginia team that's super talented and has a chance to do some great things this season. So I'm picking Oklahoma to get the win, but it'll be close.
Yeah, I think when I say this, I don't want to offend anybody out there. I'm aware that West Virginia has won in Norman before, but it was in the 80s. So I'm talking about Big 12. Big 12 era football. They have yet to win there. Yep. They've yet to win there. And until they do, it's hard for me to kind of go, I'm picking West Virginia. I do think, though, this football team is playing very well. This is the best that they've played under Neil Brown at any point, in my opinion. You can see the buy-in top to bottom. You're seeing the things that West Virginia's preached about for the last 5 years kind of come to fruition. Now they've taken advantage of some of the teams they've had to play, but that's what good teams do. You beat those teams. You don't lose those games. You find a way to win them, and you play clean football. And for everything that has gone wrong at times, you can't help but feel like right now that this West Virginia football team's kind of coming together despite
I
injuries,
agree.
despite some of the challenges they've played. So you're really getting to the point where I'm not going to say you can trust the climb because they got to close strong. But if this team finishes 9-3, 8-4, that is a very good year from Neil Brown. But I'm getting ahead of myself. There's still 3 games left. We'll see how they unfold. West Virginia's got to win those games first. We've already seen them drop a game at Houston they should have won. So we'll see if it carries over. That's going to be the key. Thank you for tuning in again, tripping over my own words. I'm going to get a penalty. And Musings from the Mountains. We appreciate you watching and look forward to our coverage this weekend.